Welcome to Crisis in Perception, where we examine the systems shaping our world.
So today, we're going to dig into why this injustice still exists, and we'll be using a really powerful diagnostic tool to get to the bottom of its deep structural roots.
What we're looking at here is the core analysis from Harriet A. Washington's incredible, groundbreaking book, Medical Apartheid. It's really a structural diagnosis of how a system can churn out progress for some people by, well, systematically harming others. All right, let's jump right in. First things first, we need to really identify the system we're talking about. So what Washington's book documents is this: a medical system that was literally built on a foundation of unequal risk. A system where some people's bodies were essentially treated as tools, just raw materials for the advancement of others. You see, as Washington lays it out, the person actually being treated or experimented on, they often had no voice, no rights at all. In this dynamic, it was the slave owner who was considered the real patient, the one the doctor had to please. The enslaved person, they were just the site of the procedure, what Washington calls a medical non-entity.
So you might be asking, how does a system like this even work? I mean, what keeps it running?
Well, there is a really powerful way to think about it: a structural metaphor, a one-way pipeline. And this slide, wow, it just lays it all out so clearly. Harm, in the form of human bodies, gets fed into one end of the system as raw material. Then, out the other side comes all this incredible stuff: medical innovation, surgical breakthroughs, prestige. But here's the kicker: the benefits almost never circle back to the communities that paid that terrible price. And this is what keeps that pipeline flowing. It's all about the incentives. For the researchers and the institutions, the rewards are obvious, right? Career advancement, getting published, fame, money. Meanwhile, the marginalized groups being used as subjects, they have so much less power to say no or to hold anyone accountable. Okay, so we've seen the system and the incentives. Now let's talk about the outcomes. What happens when a system like this operates for generations? How does it impact people, even today? Well, a system like this produces pretty predictable results. And one of the biggest, most important outcomes is a deep, and I mean rational, mistrust. It's so important that we understand this correctly and not just, dismiss it. And this right here is the real crisis in perception that we're talking about. It's our failure to see that this mistrust isn't some kind of irrational fear. No, it's a completely logical, historically backed response to a well-documented system of abuse and exploitation. And man, this history is just full of shocking examples. I mean, take the 20th century radiation experiments. A researcher flat out explained why they targeted poor Black cancer patients. They were chosen because they were vulnerable, because they didn't have the money or the power to fight back. It's just a bone-chilling look at the system's internal logic. So you have to wonder, right? If the harms are so obvious, why is the system so stable? How does it manage to protect itself and just keep going? Well, the answer is pretty fascinating. It's all about feedback loops. You get procedures that look like consent, but maybe the person doesn't have all the information. You get these stories and narratives that paint controversial figures as medical heroes. And responsibility gets spread so thin across different institutions and departments that no one person is ever really held accountable. And that's the key takeaway here. These protective loops make the whole system incredibly resilient. They normalize things that should be absolutely shocking, and they make sure that the pipeline, it just keeps on operating, maybe in different forms, but even into the modern era. Okay, for our last piece here, let's zoom out, because it's crucial to see how this medical system connects to the wider world. Yeah, this pipeline doesn't just exist in a vacuum, right? It's propped up and reinforced by all these bigger social and economic structures. We're talking about America's history of a racial caste system, profit-driven biomedical markets, the way government funding works, and even the media narratives that celebrate progress without ever asking at what cost. So what Washington's diagnosis really tells us is that this system isn't broken. In a way, it was built to work exactly like this, to produce innovation by concentrating risk on certain people. And understanding that structure, really seeing the pipeline, the incentives, the feedback loops, that is the absolute first step towards seeing things clearly and working toward real change. Crisis in Perception examines how systems shape belief and how better tools help us see clearly. This project is free and publicly accessible. If you'd like to support the time, tools, and research behind Crisis in Perception, you can become a supporter on Patreon. For a longer audio-based analysis of this topic, see the deep dive linked in the description.
If you enjoy this kind of systems-level analysis, please like, subscribe, and comment with books or topics you'd like us to explore next.